What is happening, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. As always, guys, we are streaming to you live here on DSM-Media's Philadelphia YouTube and Twitter channels. If you guys haven't already, if you're watching on Twitter, if you're watching in replay form, make sure to do yourself a favor, do us a favor, tap into the YouTube channel specifically, hit that subscribe button. It is the best and only spot to get your thoughts, comments, and questions pulled up here on the screen with us and to be interactive. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. To my right, my faithful co-host, Scotty. The Phillies' magic number, not to make the playoffs, Scotty, to clinch their division, to clinch the National League East, is down to single digits. It is down to 9 games over the Mets and the Braves, who are kind of tied for that last wild card spot. At the moment, their magic number to clinch a playoff spot obviously is 8. No one's worried about that. And that's kind of where I want to start this conversation, man. We're going to get into Eagles, Falcons, Monday Night Football a little later on down the road in this show. Obviously, since they play Monday, we have a Monday morning show. We're going to really break it down on that show. We have the pregame show that night. So we're going to be talking about this game in depth a lot more on Monday. We'll touch on the fringes and the injury report and stuff like that today. But first and foremost, man, we are right around the corner from Phillies playoff baseball and another Red October, and it feels really, really good to be back, Scotty.
Yeah, man. Happy Friday to everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys as always. And yeah, man, I think you hit the nail on the head. We've been kind of quiet on the Phillies of late, but we are approaching a major point in the season. Obviously, a big series coming up against the Mets this weekend. And it's closing time, right? When you talk about the regular season for the MLB. So it's time to start finding our true place amongst the elites in the postseason and see who we're going to be matching up against. So
Yeah, man.
I'm excited to see how the Titans can finish this stretch.
Sure. I mean, that's what football season does, especially the start of football season, right? Because everyone's craving it. Everyone's waiting for it. You have a long, drawn-out summer of 162-game season of baseball. And it's just like the beginning of any season, right? Like when February rolls around and football and the Super Bowl ends, what does everyone start to look forward to around here? Oh, the Phillies are coming back soon, right? We're in the middle towards the end of a Sixer season, a Flyer season. Everyone gets so excited for the new season to start. And especially football, when it's not just the Eagles around here, it's everything, right? It's the entire NFL, it's college football, it's gambling, it's fantasy football, it's all of that. So yeah, our attention got drifted away for a little bit, but we never weren't paying attention. And the Phillies just completed a 3-game sweep of the Tampa Bay Rays. Nick Castellanos gets plunked 2 more times, one of which in game 2 of this series when they opened things up in the bottom of the 8th inning in a 9-4 victory. Started kind of a bench clearing brawl, right? Brawls in baseball are very rare to come by. Very rarely do you see any punches be thrown. It's just a little pushing, not much, and a lot of talking, right? But Bryson Casti in the center of it, and I continue to love the fight from this team. We're going to talk Ranger Suarez. We're going to talk pitching staff, bullpen, all of that, Scotty. But I did want to start out the show by just hitting on the fact of that magic number, of the fact that they're down to single digits on September 13th, of not just making the playoffs, but of clinching the division and fighting for that top spot in the National League with the Dodgers, where they hold the tiebreaker currently over LA. And that's just what a fun baseball season can do for you. And that's part of the reason I was getting so frustrated with our fellow fan base a month and a half ago, because it's like for the last 2 seasons, we have gone down to the wire of the final weekend in 22. With 2 games remaining, the Phillies clinched a playoff spot, the 3rd and final wild card spot. And we were ecstatic last year, down to the final week of the regular season before they clinched the top wild card spot. We all knew they were going to make the playoffs, right? They weren't fighting for that 6th seed, but nonetheless, it was a wild card spot that they were in the hunt for. This year, on September 13th, they hold the best record in baseball. They hold the number 1 spot in the NL right now, and they are 8 games up in the National League, 7 games up in the National League with the Mets coming to town. And it's just a fun feeling for me on this Friday, man. Like the fact that we are not sweating about if there's going to be a Red October. We're sweating the fact of, okay, who's coming to town on Red October? Are we getting a bye in Red October? Something that we're unfamiliar with going back to 2011, those Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee days, the post-World Series team. That's how long it's been since the Phillies have won a National League pennant, because the Braves have ran this division for so long. It's exciting, man. That's just where I wanted to start. Keep it positive. Keep it light on the show today. It's fun. Phillies baseball is fun, everybody.
Yeah, and I think it's a good time to come back to that, of course, right? Because you obviously had the summer where everybody was just up in arms, ripping their hair out, even though it wasn't really that bad. It was just a long stretch. That's all it really was. Yeah, we're getting into the most important part of the season, man. It's fun, like you said. And
no, I won't take it back, Darius.
He's a little salty. He lost his dynasty quarterback last night. So
we can talk about that in a few minutes as well. Very serious kind of conversation.
No, man, I do agree, man. It's a time to be excited. I think it's a time to really start to put the attention back on the Phillies. I'm talking to myself even in this sense. Obviously the football season, it gets you so caught up. I mean, between college football, soccer,
especially when you're just on a heater like the two Phaithful Phanatics are in the gambling world on football specifically. Again, if you're not already tapped in, check out the Twitter page. All picks posted there. Quick plug, Scotty. Quick plug.
So, how are you feeling about the Mets series this weekend, man? They start tonight. Who's on the mound tonight? Aaron Nola.
Is it Nola? All right, it's a statement game for Nola tonight. I'm intrigued by the Mets series, man. Not for the fact that, like, I mean, maybe I should be a little bit more back on my heels and concerned, right, than I feel like I am. I have no fear and no doubt that the Phillies win the NL East. Like, I'm not in any sort of concern that the Mets are going to come to town and take all three against us. And then I think, like, we play the Brewers and we play the Mets again. So, like, I am not really all that worried. I'm not worried at all about losing the division race at this point. But I am intrigued when you look at the Mets that have climbed all the way back and are potentially looking to knock out the Atlanta Braves for that sixth and final wild card playoff spot. I'm intrigued to see how, if we ran into New York, how these next two series against them, kind of how we match up, how we fare. And the way I look at them and the Braves is, yes, even though the Braves staff is beat up, they don't have Spencer Strider. You still have a guy, Max Fried. You still have a Cy Young candidate in Chris Sale. I know Reynaldo Lopez got hurt again, but he could be back by playoff time. The Braves at least have a staff that scares me, while they're very beat up come their lineup, come their offense. Where the Mets, Francisco Lindor is kind of putting on an MVP show over the last 2 months, willing this team to the finish line. We know you have guys like Pete Alonso and Jeff McNeil and Starling Marte and JD Martinez and just up and down this lineup that can kill you at times. So the Mets offense scares me more than the injured Braves does by a landslide. I am not really concerned about this Mets staff at all. Like so, even a little bit.
This is what I wanted to ask you based off that, because the way it's like kind of playing out, it just gave me an idea. And I wanted to ask you, because you're the baseball expert here, my man.
Sure.
If you look at it from this scenario, right? Just 2 years ago when the Phillies went into the postseason, the Braves kind of had everything under control in the division. The Phillies, sneak or get into the postseason for the first time in a while. And they're able to upset the Braves in the first round of the postseason. Does this Mets team give you any type of that vibe at all? Like, are they anything even close to that? I just see they're 8-2 in their last 10. Like, they're trying to pick up steam as the season finishes to make the postseason. They just jumped the Braves. They're up by 1 game on the Braves right now.
Yeah.
Do they have enough to be that dangerous? Like, I guess is what I'm asking you.
No, and for a few reasons. And I'm not trying to discredit what they're doing. They're 80-66 now. They are officially second in the division. And back in June, they were one of the worst teams in the National League at that point. Their lineup is good. It scares me more than the Braves does with all their injuries in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But they don't have the firepower like the Phillies to go on that run, right? To go on that type of Like, there's no Kyle Schwarber. I know they have Lindor and he leads off most nights, but there's no Kyle Schwarber with 14, 15 leadoff home runs, right? There's no MVP. There's no Bryce Harper. There's no Trey Turner. There's just not enough firepower for me. But that's not even the biggest thing. The biggest thing is their staff. There's no Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola that you can send on the road in the first 2 games of an NLDS.
That's very fair.
Kind of feel like you might have the upper hand or an advantage. Luis Severino or Shaw, and that's the point, man. Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Jose Quintana and Manaea, the Phillies saw back in 22 with the Padres and the Cardinals and destroyed both of them.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm not all that concerned with what the Mets bring to the table, although I'm probably more concerned with them than I would be the Atlanta Braves. I'll throw it all together. I'll tell you, I just don't want the Arizona Diamondbacks to be that team. And that's not because of the talent. It's
that's what I was going to ask you.
Weird vibe thing. It is just.
Would you rather play a division rival?
Yeah, they're just an annoying team when it comes to the Phillies, man. What did we do? When we had that 4-game set like a month ago, we went there, won the first one, we feel pretty good about it. And then they take the next 3, and we're coming home with our tail tucked between our legs, like, oh,
they
man,
have the pitching.
Destroyed the end of this this road trip, this West, you know.
And they do have studs in their staff. You know what I mean? They got the Gallons of the world.
Right,
so
right. Jordan Montgomery hasn't necessarily worked out for them, but they can do that to you.
And he can turn it on at any moment. We saw what he was able to do for Texas last year.
Correct.
So, I feel you.
Of the wild card teams, I would rank it Diamondbacks, Mets, Braves. The Padres are going to be thrown in this conversation. They could very likely, or they probably very likely will make the playoffs. I'm not all that concerned about them. I think it comes down to pitching. I know Dylan Cease has been very good this year. I'm not all that concerned about that team.
Yeah.
So I'm confident, and I think maybe a little bit at what you're getting at without saying it. Also, Scotty, is we've watched the Braves be this dominant regular season team. Hell, they have a World Series just a few years ago. And they have all this talent, and then they get this bye, and something changes. Why were the Phillies able to win back-to-back years against them in a 5-game set?
It's like a monkey on your back,
right? And will that happen to us? Will the time off while these other teams are playing a 3-game set? Will that affect us? I don't think so. I think if anything, it'll help this Phillies staff a little bit more than it did a Braves staff. Which is how much Nola and Wheeler are eating up this year, and how much stress might be on the bullpen at that point. And I don't know, man. Like maybe if the last 5 games of the season we're still forcing to play our starters for seeding wise purposes, and Harper's on an absolute fucking tear, and Schwarber's still ripping home runs, and someone else is on a tear, and then you get a 4 or 5 day break. Maybe then we'll be like, oh man, that's bad timing.
Yeah,
but we can't see into the future.
Yeah,
Bryce
we can't worry about that.
Bone could come back and be in a slump, and it's like, oh man, a 4 or 5 day break might be nice. Hit the reset. So we're gonna have to just see how it plays out at that point in time. Yeah, but I'm more confident in the Phillies up here than I am the Atlanta Braves, and than I am most teams in the major leagues, because I think everything they've been through the last 2 years has built them up for this moment, man. So we're gonna see. And that Martian comment, I do want to get to him in a minute here, man.
That's what I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned that teams like the Mets don't have like a Wheeler or a Nola that can go on the road and grab a W. You didn't mention Ranger there, so I'm wondering where the confidence is with Ranger. Is it wavering?
Yeah.
Do you think he could turn it? Obviously, this last game was not great. He had 12 hits, 4 earned runs.
Yeah,
they were able to get the win, but nonetheless, not a great out.
No, you are right, though. I didn't mention him, and that wasn't on purpose. I was just kind of sticking with the 2 that go on the road. But
I'm not accusing you of anything.
No.
I think it's your 2 aces.
Ranger has pitched on the road. He went to Atlanta back in 22 in Game 1 and got them that win. Because to your point, not only do most teams not have an Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler at top of their rotation, a lot of teams don't have a Ranger Suarez at number 3, but that's a Ranger Suarez going right. That's a Ranger Suarez going well. And
Yeah.
to your point and Martian's point, yeah, he's a bit of a concern. I'm not quite sure they have a Ranger problem at the moment, like some people do. That's I'm pretty sure that's the start where everything went to shit against the Marlins. I'm pretty sure that's when things went bad. It was either that or Detroit. Now, it might have been the Detroit game. I'm not positive, but no, it was the Marlins. It was yeah. Look, going back to that start, right, against Detroit is when things went south. Is when his like Cy Young candidacy kind of disappeared. He gave up 4 against the Tigers. He gave up 6 in 4 innings against the Marlins. He gave up 5 again, and then he gave up 5 against the Braves, 4 against the A's, 3 against the Twins. Wasn't terrible, but they lose the game 7-2. Then he gets hurt. Then he comes back and gives up 1 in 5 innings to Kansas City. Then he gives up 4 in 4 innings against Atlanta. We were there for that one. Then he gives up 0 in 5 innings against the Marlins. Then he gives up 4 in 5 1/3 against the Rays, even though they win that game last Tuesday. I don't know, man. I think he's just got to find his rhythm. The issue with Ranger right now, and that everybody could see in the broadcast and postgame we're talking about, it's very simple. When he throws a pitch and that little circle, when there's a swing and a miss or no swing, and that little circle hits that box on your TV screen, and you see those 2 numbers pop up, the velocity is down. And it's been down. But Tuesday, it was a little bit worse. And Tuesday, the thing that I don't know if more people noticed, but dude, it was just like his whole delivery was off for me. It was like he was trying to force the ball, just push the ball over the plate. And he didn't get swings and misses. And he gave up 12 hits. I don't know. I don't know what it could be, and maybe it's up here, but again, he's Mr. Calm, cool, and collected. His heart rate never raises. So I don't know what it could be with Ranger right now, man. But he does have to get it right, because I was gonna ask you, on the pregame show the other night, they did a fun little segment of where they went around and each of them picked a guy that they thought would be the difference maker in the postseason for the Phillies. And we can do that in a second. But I think to tie Ranger into this conversation, because it's definitely where I would go, I want to ask you, who's the guy you're most worried about? Doesn't have to be Ranger, but who's the guy you're most concerned about, not positive about come postseason time, that could maybe hurt this ball club? Because my answer would be the tie-in Ranger here. Like, he is the difference maker, and he doesn't.
I think he's the obvious one, because my question, and this is something we can address after maybe I gave you my answer, but I was sitting there thinking on top of your question, what does this team look like if Ranger is not ready to be that consistent third starter in the postseason? Like, where do they go next? Is it Christopher Sanchez? Does he get moved up? Like, how far do we go if that is the case? But we don't have to jump that far just yet. I think the big thing for me, man, was I don't know. I think I want to go against the tide here and go with Alec Boehm, just coming back off the injury, man. And we know how important he can be to this lineup. And it's not to say that he was playing bad. He was actually playing some of his best baseball of his career before he went out. So just getting him back to that level, I think would be a great plus. The other guy that comes to mind, man, and he hasn't been as bad of late, but Bryson Stott, he's another guy that I think could be a big key piece down the stretch. Just because we know what he can bring, right? Which is working the plate, getting long at bats, making the pitcher work, getting their pitch count up. And he just hasn't been able to do that as much this year. So I'm not sure how much he's going to be able to hone it in and get back to that by the postseason and be consistent like that. So he comes to mind. Alec Boehm comes to mind just because of the time that he's missed and how important he was while he was in. I think aside from them, like, if I had to go with a guy that is, one of our main guys right now, my mind goes to Trey for some reason. And I don't know.
Confident in?
No, it's
that you're worried about.
That I worry about, and I don't know if that's fair. Like, he has been one of the more consistent guys. I know he can have some major cold streaks to where,
and that's the guy in that spot of the lineup that can
Yeah,
hurt you,
that
right?
can really hurt
Yeah.
you. Bryce has also been very cold during this last,
Well,
last stretch,
to be
but
fair, he's hitting like 313. The issue is he hasn't hit a home run in over a month.
home run
That's what
power.
everyone's up in arms
Yeah.
about. He's still hitting the baseball very well. He's just not getting that oomph. And then you see the swings and he drops the bat and something's wrong. And he talks about discomfort, but he's going to play through it. So it gets the wheels spinning. Like, is he going to be able to push them out of the ballpark come October?
Right.
Hopefully. And you're going to need him to be.
Where does your mind go to outside of Ranger? Where do you go to?
For the concern, Aaron Nola. I'm going to stick with the pitching. And maybe that's not fair because he's actually been more consistent this year than he has been the last 2 years and in years past when we've needed him. He's always been Mr. Inconsistent, right? Up and down. It's a roller coaster.
He could be the answer every time, honestly.
To your point about Trey Turner, like that is Aaron Nola of the pitching staff for me. The number 2 in the staff, the number 2 in the order. And they have the ability when they're on
to be so good, to be elite,
affect games in such a major positive way, to take games over at times. But when they're off, if Aaron Nola is not right, excuse me, you're talking like 4 or 5 runs in 4 or 5 innings. And that's not a spot you want to be in, especially in like a 5-game series, not a 7-game series, a 5-game series against the Mets or the Braves or the Diamondbacks or whoever you get potentially in that second round. So Aaron Nola for me is a big question mark and is a little bit of a concern because it's not just going to take one start for me to flip the switch, because I've seen it. I've seen him in the wild card. I've seen him in the first start of the NLDS against the Braves go out and be lights fucking out. The problem is I've seen him in the NLCS and I've seen him get beat up by the Padres and I've seen him get beat up by the Diamondbacks, and that's what you can't afford. So we'll see. We'll see when it comes to Aaron Nola.
That was a great answer, and I love that you compared him to Trey, because I do see the comparison, because it's the same thing, man. When Trey is striking out at the plate, when he looks lost at the plate, I hate to make the comparison. It's almost like when Castellanos is lost at the plate.
Yeah.
You just expect it from Castellanos. You know that he's going to have these moments where he goes on these cold streaks, but with Trey, he's so great sometimes you could call him an MVP candidate.
Yep.
But then he just has these cold spells. Like I went back because I knew there was a point in the season where he was just in a stretch that he could not get anything done. And I do see it was that no-hit stretch against the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. So they had the 4-game series against the Diamondbacks in August and the 3-game series against the Dodgers, where he went completely hitless in both of those series. So once again, it's just a worry of a cold streak hitting at the wrong time, which you could quite honestly say about all of the guys in this lineup. If you want to be completely honest, they're a very streaky team in general, but I do love that comparison of Nola because he can be so good. He can be such an ace. And you did mention him with wheels as a guy that can go on the road and grab you a W in the postseason, but he can also come back home and lose your game in the postseason as well, man. It's very fair. So it's going to be interesting, man, to see if, one Ranger can get his shit together before the postseason. That should be the main focus for him.
Yeah.
Just reeling it in, man. Get it together, figure it out. I don't know what they can try to get Ranger, back on track. I don't know if you give him, a bigger break, give him more time off, or if you try to work him a little bit more. I'm not sure there, but they got to get that.
I hear you. They got to figure it out, man, because as good as Christopher Sanchez has been all year long, really, he was an all-star this year. It's just a different animal come postseason time, and maybe he's built for it, right? He's stoic, right? You never see. He's just like he's Ranger in a sense. You don't see emotion from Christopher Sanchez when he's out on the mound. And maybe he's calm, cool, and collected as well. Maybe he's built for those moments. But it is a different beast. It is a different animal when you're talking about pitching in game 3 or 4 of an NLCS, potentially at Dodger Stadium or wherever you might be for it. So, we need Ranger to get right. The positive, who is going to be a difference maker in a good way? Who's going to lead this team? Darius is rolling with Schwartz. I love the answer. It's kind of where I want to go, simply because, man, like you're seeing right now, and you saw over the past couple of weeks, like when he's like this, There's not many other hitters in baseball that are like this. You can't miss his barrel when he's like this, Scotty, especially in the leadoff spot when he can set a tone the way he has, and he's done it in the playoffs as well. When he can set a tone like that, that's demoralizing for the other team. Just bottom of the first, raucous crowd. You go down 1-2-3 at Citizens Bank Park, and within 2 pitches, Kyle Schwarber hits one 445 feet. That's demoralizing, right?
It
so
is,
he's there. Bryce is the best player on the team. Bryce has to be right. Bryce has to be going. Your point about Trey, right? You're concerned about him because he can be that guy that gets cold. But when he's right, I mean, they're all the same. They're all built in the same way. I'm going to, just to be different from Darius, I am going to roll with Nick Castellanos because I think Nick Castellanos,
exactly
we are past the point of, Nick Castellanos is just in one of his hot streaks or he's just playing well over the last month or so. No. Nick Castellanos has been the Phillies' most consistent, maybe best hitter.
Yeah.
Since he ended that horrible start to the season in May. He was awful in May. Dude, his batting average was like sub 150 for a large portion of the first month of baseball. Since then, he's been their most consistent guy. He's been one of their most clutch hitters. He's walked off a couple games. The other night, what did he hit for? His 20th home run of this season? It's the first time he's gone back-to-back 20 home runs or whatever in quite some time. He is a guy that is such a difference maker no matter where you hit him, whether he's hitting cleanup or when Bohm comes back, he goes back there and Nick's hitting 5, 6, 7. It doesn't matter. He's hit in all the spots this year. He's remained consistent throughout the summer. And it's not just the fact of how you saw him last year, Scotty. It's not just when he gets on that heater in October and he's ripping balls against Spencer Strider 100 miles an hour into the left field seats. He's hitting home runs. I just mentioned he's got 20 of those things. But he's getting on base. He's coming up with 2 outs, runner on second, and floating one out to left center and bringing in a run. He's coming out. He's coming up in the 9th inning and setting the tone with a leadoff. He's doing the smaller things. He's playing small ball as well, and that's something you're going to need in October. We've seen it. They can't just rely on the long ball. They're going to get knocked out at some point. They haven't found other ways to win the last 2 years. You have to figure out how to get runners over from second and third with less than 2 outs. You have to figure out how to hit with 2 strikes. You have to figure out how to just put the ball in play, lift one to the outfield to bring that runner in. You have to play small ball in October if you want to win a World Series. And he's a guy that's been doing it all year long for them. He can take over a series, man.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I was just going through the numbers. I wanted to like kind of back myself up with the numbers here, and it does. If you go by the numbers on the season, Nick Castellanos, you could argue, is a top 3 most important Philly in that batting lineup. You look at some of the most important statistics, man. The hits. He's top 3 in hits on the team. He's top 3 in home runs on the team. He's top 3 in RBIs on the team. So he is right up there with the Bryce Harpers, the Kyle Schwarbers in all of those categories, the Alec Bohms of this team. And I do agree, man. I think he is the guy that, even though he can go on a cold streak, he's also shown the polar opposite, which is that he has nuts. Right. He can show up in the big moments and make big plays. And I think that's what kind of separates him from Trey Turner in this sense, is like, Trey Turner, don't get me wrong, has had moments where, he's
Trey's the better baseball player. I don't think anybody's
better baseball player.
Yeah.
But Nick Castellanos has come up time and time again in these huge moments where adrenaline is rushing, everything's on the line. And like you said, he's able to get a few walk-offs recently, and he's done it in the postseason even, right? Mm-hmm. I do agree. I think Nick Castellanos is that guy. Like, when you start looking at teams that are built to win championships, and you ask yourself, let me put it in like a basketball term, right? I look at that Denver Nuggets team that won the championship a few years ago, and you just had like Bruce Brown playing out of his mind for that championship team, and then he's just a 6th man. That's it, right? He just adds that little extra, and that's what I see in Nick Castellanos. It's like, if you're getting what you normally get from Schwarber, if you're getting what you normally get from Trey
Anything
Turner,
close
Bryce
to
Harper,
those two. Yeah, anything close to those two.
if Nick Castellanos adds anything to this, like he's been doing this season,
Yeah.
you're going to win the World Series. He is the difference maker.
And I will add, I'm glad you brought that up, man, because I'm rolling with Nick as the pick, and he might be hitting fourth. He might be hitting fifth. But you mentioned if you're getting production from the top of that order, like they're going to need to be. Those are the guys you paid. Those are your stars. If the stars don't show up, as we've seen last year, you're not going to go anywhere. It all depends on them. But if you're getting them, someone in the back end of this lineup has to step up.
Yeah.
Someone's got to be a guy. And whether that's Brandon Marsh in the batter's box, whether that's Bryson Stott stepping up, I have no idea what the timeline is on Austin Hayes. If he's back by then, if he is he back to being every day like Rob said he was going to be post whatever the infection he's got going on? I have no idea. But whoever's hitting in that 7, 8, 9 spot, one of them has to produce throughout the postseason, because it's just too many. There's a lot of teams that struggle with that, man. Hell, the Dodgers can struggle with that in the 7, 8, 9 spot, where it's like you get to that spot in the lineup. When you're up to bat, it's like, we'll try to get them next thing. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let's just get through this and whatever, and hope we don't give up a run in our half of the inning. But if Marsh is as hot as he can be sometimes, or Bryson is working at bats and ripping doubles down the line and coming up with clutch ABs, those are guys, someone's going to have to step up as well in that part of the lineup. So
we've seen other teams do it against us in the postseason. It's why we've lost. We watched it in the World Series against the Astros.
We watched Martin Maldonado, who was hitting like sub 200, catching for the Astros. And when he would come up, the broadcast would talk about how he's just a guy that you have to get out hitting in that 9 spot because he's just not good enough. And I think it literally in game 1, he had like 2 or 3 RBIs and came up with 2 out hits. Yeah. It was the most frustrating thing ever. And
Jeremy Pena, he won World Series MVP. Right?
Yeah. No, but that's another thing that demoralizes teams, Scotty, because if you're the starting pitcher, if you're Zach Wheeler or Aaron Nola, and you have 2 outs with runners on second and third, and Maldonado comes up, same for us. If you're Zach Gallen, if you're anybody, and in the NLCS, and we have second and third or bases loaded with 2 outs, and Johan Rojas comes up to bat, you need that out. Yeah, but if Johan Rojas can push one into the outfield somewhere and 2 come in,
it's a game
that's
changer.
Demoralizing. That's the guy you had to go after, and you couldn't get him. You couldn't finish that inning off against him, and that's something that can change the course of a ball game as well. So I'm excited, man. We still have some time to kill. We have about probably like 2.5 to 3 weeks before the postseason starts. And I mean, hell, if the Phillies get a bye, like we're hoping they do, it'll probably be a little over 3 weeks before they play a playoff game. But it's going to be something down at that ballpark, man, because you got to figure with the way that last year ended and how good they've been all year, you got to figure that crowd is going to show up hungrier than ever and wanting this team to finish the job.
Well, they better. They've been acting like spoiled brats all season. So, I mean, like, let's be for real here. You better fucking show up. No, I was just gonna say I'm actually going to the game against the Cubs on the 23rd.
Hell yeah!
So that's a Monday.
Well, then you better show up, Scotty.
My nurse wife won tickets, so that's fun.
Those are the best, man.
Absolutely.
I remember. I'll never forget, dude. I was at I had to have been, oh God, this is going to take me back. Hold on. What year did we play the Magic in the playoffs and Iggy hit that crossover on Turkoglu to at the buzzer to win like game 1 or something of that series? You know what I'm talking about?
I do. It
was the Dwight Howard led Magic. It was Rashard Lewis, Hedo Turkoglu. I think JJ was on the team.
It's
Dwight
like their
Howard.
golden year. Yeah, Jameer Nelson.
I don't know what year it was, man. Maybe 2009, maybe, or I don't know. But anyway, I have no idea, man. I had to have been
in high school.
I had to have been 12 years old, maybe a little younger, and my family was at Nick's Roast Beef in the Northeast. I don't think it's there anymore. and they had like a game room. They had like a pool table, but they had like arcade games as well. And you know that game, like if you go to Dave and Buster's or if you're down the shore on the boardwalk, it's got like the 3 red blocks that like shoot across the screen, and you got to hit the button and try to stack them all the way up to the top, and then it gets to 1 block and whatever. Well, they had a pair of Phillies suite tickets hanging in there. And I kept playing. And all the adults are in the other room. Like, what are these kids doing? And dude, I somehow win it. And I don't know if I'm like 11 years old. I don't know. And I don't know if nobody really played that game or won that game or whatever. But like this thing's like going off on the game, and the manager comes over and he's looking. He's like, oh, and he like starts fumbling with his keys and like opens the thing for the prize. And I'm like, right there, Phillies tickets. And yeah, I got 2 sweet tickets off of playing a fucking arcade game. It was as like 11 years old. It was fucking sick. It's like my grandpa. Oh yeah.
That's always the bless, man, when you can not only get it for free, but work for it, I guess.
Well,
I
they
guess
weren't free. I'm not
enough,
sure how many of Mama Dill's dollars were put in that machine before he ended up winning at that time. But
Mama Dill.
We'll see, man. Well, not we'll see, but I'll try to ask her if she remembers. It might have been quarters. I don't fucking know. We're in a Knicks roast for God's sakes.
About like, can we win some Eagles tickets for the nurse? Can my nurse wife get some?
Yeah. Or how about we spice things up and make these some playoff tickets, nurses?
Yeah, some Red October tickets, right? Or maybe the series against the Mets tickets. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to be that pretentious here, but no, I'm excited for that though. Get out there to the ballpark.
Yeah.
Hopefully, depending on. Man, early on in the postseason, going to try to get out there for a postseason game, but we'll see how the betting goes and how everything goes leading up to that.
I'd love to, man. I'd love to. And I got to 2 games back in 22. I got to the Reese Bat Spike game against the Braves, and I went to the first home game of the NLCS. When the Gene Segura game, when he made all the diving stops at second base and came up with the clutch RBI. But then something changed last year. Not that those tickets were cheap, but I mean, I managed those tickets for like 200 or less, right?
Because the year before was the surprise. And so
last year, brother, like I'm talking wild card, I'm talking NLDS home game 1. I'm talking $500, $600, $700 for upper level.
Yeah,
your boy probably ain't. But now, if I can find $500-$600 tickets for a World Series game, and I can pull it off, maybe I'll do it. But if you think I'm spending $400 or $500 on a Game 1 NLDS against the Mets or the Diamondbacks, you're out of your fucking mind, bro.
And that's the thing. It doesn't matter what matchup it is. It's going to be a marquee matchup regardless. Like whether it's the Diamondbacks, the Braves, the Mets, so on and so forth. It's going to be a matchup that people are going to be willing to pay big money for. So I feel you. Maybe we'll hit a bar rather.
Maybe I'll take the game in my basement right over here. I don't know.
We'll pretend we're at the stadium. We'll get the VR glass.
I got my Rally South from 2 years ago. I'll wave that bitch all around. Wave it all the fuck around, dude.
Because when you start to think about it, it's like, damn, like what? I'm gonna drop $400 or $500 in the middle of the NFL season and not hit an Eagles game. Then, like,
I'll get creative.
I don't know, man.
I'll get creative with it, Scotty. I'll get my speaker out and I'll go to like that. Like the crowd video, the no broadcast video of Stott's Grand Slam a couple years ago when you could just hear the noise of the ballpark. I'll just have that on loop, just crowd noise running on loop as I'm standing in my basement. I'll get creative,
bro. Nah, I do feel it though, man, and I do feel you, Abe. You got to get out to an Eagles game. I don't know. Well, let me ask, like, have you ever been to one, Abe? I don't know how close you are to the city, or if you. Actually,
football games are so different to me, man. I do like to try to get out to one a year.
It's an event.
I was at the preseason game against the Vikings. Tailgate a little. Obviously,
you're bound to get blacked out if you drink. You're bound to get blacked out, like because it's
very difficult not to
tame yourself.
If you do it correctly, it's very difficult not to. And what I mean by correctly is 1 p.m. start, you're probably in the lots around 7:30, 7:45, no later than like 8:15. If you do that bitch correctly, and that's over 4.5 hours of standing out there.
Those night games are crazy for sure. for sure.
Like that Seattle playoff game I went to when Wentz got the concussion. I think that started at like 4:30 or something.
Yeah,
I was
that
in
was
the parking
brutal,
lot.
man.
I was in the parking lot at like 9:30 in the morning, dude. 9
Yeah,
o'clock in the morning. Like you're talking 6 or 7 hours of doing that shit.
I remember like being at that game and not realizing until like the fourth quarter that Josh McCown was playing at quarterback. Like that's how drunk I was.
Which I hate too, bro. Like I
I
do.
know.
I love the
It's the give or
atmosphere, right?
take.
But if it's a regular season game, I can live with it. But if it's that playoff game we're talking about, like if Carson never got hurt, and let's say they won that game, and I didn't really remember it because I got fucked up in the parking lot, I'd be so mad at myself the next day, especially spending the money you spend on the tickets for a playoff game there. Like that's when.
That's honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I honestly don't go to the playoff games anymore. Obviously, they're super expensive at this point with inflation and whatnot. But there's a difference in watching the game from home on your TV. I just can see a lot more. I can see the game a lot better.
Yeah, the tailgate.
It's more of the environment for the tailgate than the actual
also
game.
Depending where you sit, right? If you're where I sit, which is upper level row like 28, 26. And it's at the 20-yard line of the one end zone. I mean, it's not bad. You can see,
and it's freezing cold as well.
Right.
So,
but like if you're 200 level or 100 level around anywhere between the 30s, pretty good.
It's solid.
Pretty good.
I just think the football game, like versus other games, it's more like the environment than the actual.
And that's another thing. If you're talking,
I get caught up. That's why I only like to do it
prime time solo game. If you're talking Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, then I can get behind it. There's nothing else on. But Sundays are a whole ordeal for it. Sundays are an entire layout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Sundays, you're paying attention to everything else. There's if the Eagles play at 4, there's red zone on all, and it's like you're paying attention to everything. Whether if it's a Monday night game, ain't nothing else going on. I can go tailgate all day if I want to and not care about anything else.
I'm honestly, I usually a game in either October or November, sometimes around Thanksgiving, but we don't really have a home game this year at that time.
Nice.
So the one I'm eyeing is there's two. It's the Jaguars right at the beginning of November. They come to Philly. That's Sunday Night Football. Obviously, Doug Peterson makes that interesting. And the other one I was looking at the Browns, which maybe those tickets will drop with Deshaun Watson sucking so bad. But then I was also looking at that Commanders game in November as well at the link. But yeah, one time a year.
We'll get something together, man. We'll get something put together, and maybe involve everybody like Abe. I was going to say Marshall. I'm pretty sure his Canadian ass is somewhere up north.
Yeah, he's not going to be it. Marshawn won't make it, will he?
I doubt it, unless he flies down. He wants to talk about Onk's live stream, bro.
Are we allowed? Like, you know.
Oh, we're allowed. I just don't really
if we're allowed to curse.
I just don't really have any words for it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about it either. I think it was really weird.
I just don't know how you're so somehow untech savvy that you somehow ended up on IG Live somehow.
But you can run a podcast. And be live,
right? All that equipment, for all these years you've been in the media. I know, like people hook shit up to you, and you might just sit down and talk. Maybe that's all you have to do. But I don't know. Yeah, it might. Yeah, could have been, man. Could have been. I'm not quite getting. He's like, oh, I came in on his podcast. He's like, I threw my phone on the dresser or on the bed. You don't just end up on Instagram Live, brother. Like there's a couple buttons you have to hit before being on Instagram Live. So that shit was a scene to see, bro. Real quick, before we get to Eagles Falcons Monday Night Football, touch on some of the news and updates. The Tua thing last night. And I texted it to you literally immediately, and I've seen it circulating Twitter, and they were talking about it on Get Up on ESPN this morning. My initial thing to you is, bro, he has to retire. And I don't know any other way around it. And maybe, I'm not any sense of capable to talk in the medical field. So maybe all concussions are created equal. Maybe they are all the same. It doesn't matter if you get knocked
It
out
won't
or
look the
whatever.
same.
But the concussions that he has had back in 22 and now this one, he gets knocked the fuck out. He gets, what do they call it in that they talked about, the fencing thing where his arm, and you saw last night his like finger. It's a very ugly thing to see. And it happened every time in 22. Well, the one he got up and fell, and then the other two he got knocked out and ended up like this. And then last night, the same thing. And last night wasn't a hard hit. Last night was just his head bending away against Damar Hamlin's chest, which is one of the craziest things I thought I'd ever say. And he gets knocked out. So I don't know if they are all the same, whether it's just you smack your head and you're okay, but you have a concussion compared to that. I would assume no from the outside looking in. I would assume if you get knocked out and your arms end up and your fingers end up doing what his does, that one's worse. And when you occur as many of those as he has, dude, you can't keep going out there. But from a football perspective, not to be an asshole, slide. Bro, I don't know what he was doing. And I know maybe he didn't realize where he was at the chains, that he already picked up the first down. Were you trying to run Damar Hamlin over? I'm very confused at that. And B, before the concussion occurred and everything and this conversation happened, he was terrible. I mean, we took Bill's money line last night. We took Bill's spread. Thank you. I mean, dude, that pick six, like that reminded me of like 2020 Carson Wentz bad. That reminded me of Carson like not going down. Remember like the fumble against the Cowboys when he kept backpedaling and then took a sack and fumbled on like our own 20? Like that interception was as bad as it gets at this level. 3 picks last night for 2. He was bad, dude.
I agree. It's interesting. It's such a tough topic to talk about because he was so bad as well. On top of that happening, it was like everything that could go wrong went wrong for Tua last night. I will say this though. One, regarding the head injury, I do agree. I think he just has to retire. I think it's not worth it. He already has his money. He could die at the end of the day. I don't know what it is with his skull and his brain to where it gets, shifted around in his skull and his concussions end up looking like that. It doesn't look good. There's no way that, he's going to end up leaving football, even at this stage, at 100% capacity, like brain capacity, right? Like he's already going to have CTE from the things that have happened to him early on in his career. And I think he should just shut it down while you still can, man, before you end up paralyzed, before you end up to a point where you can't walk or talk because of this game. And, I do hate to say this because I do look at the Dolphins, man, and I look at the way he performed last night as well. And it's like, man, whether or not he retires or not, you've got like a situation here, man. Like, even if he doesn't want to retire, you should want him to retire. Like, you shouldn't want to throw him back out there on the field because it's just dangerous. It's going to make your organization look bad.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is you do have so much money invested into this guy. I'll say this, man. I don't know. Like, when I've watched Tua in the past, I've never thought he was like this like top 10 quarterback. Like, he puts up the numbers. He has these great wide receivers outside. Last night, before the injury, I just started to really see what that Dolphins team is. And I hate to say it, they are like a representation of their quarterback position. And I hate to use the term soft. It's like he is fragile. Like, we've seen the way when he hits the ground, the way his body reacts to being hit. He is fragile. That was not a hard hit last night. So the way I looked at it was like, man, he had to give up his body one time last night to go and try to get a first down in order to get points for his team. And he couldn't even survive that. So how many times is he in the backfield in the pocket and he just refuses to scramble or try to get upfield because he can't even risk getting his head knocked even a little bit? Like, I'm curious how much that impacts his game. I look at guys like Josh Allen. I look at guys like Jalen Hurts that take off, they risk their bodies, they go out, they try to get these crucial yards on third downs and whatnot. So how much is it holding the Dolphins back as well?
Yeah.
And that's the other side of the conversation. At the end of the day, his health is number one priority. I'm not here to sit here and like diss Tua or disrespect him. I just don't think the game is worth it. You got your money, you've got the riches out of it. So I think I just don't want to see a person die out there, man. Like that's the main thing. Like that's something that can change your entire view of the sport, is watching stuff like that.
And like I said,
just don't want to risk it.
There's too much that I don't know about. I've only seen a TikTok of it. I hope I'm not putting something out there that's not real, but I looked it up and I'm pretty sure it's real. The clip of that like young boxer kid that gets hit in the multiple times and then he ends up like paralyzed and everything, and he can't walk anymore and stuff. Like the brain, your head, your like your skull, like that's, you cannot play around with shit like that, dude. And again, like I know he's got the helmet on and I know that protects him, but like even the ones in 22, dude, like last night he slammed the side of his head in and whatever.
Why no guardian cap for him?
Yeah, I know.
Why no guardian cap for him? He should be forced to wear it. But I mean, it's beyond that at this point.
He smacked two of them. He smacked the back of his head when thrown down on the ground. Like
it's like a car accident.
Back here is not anywhere. It's not anywhere to play around with. But back here, I know that's the part where it doesn't take too much. And yes, he has the helmet on, but no, I agree, man. It's ultimately going to be up to him.
It's gross to watch. Yeah,
we'll see what he decides.
There's nobody else that I see react like that to concussions, man. Like honestly,
no. And I mean, dude, it went back. You think of the Andrew Luck situation, and people,
Marshawn got no chill.
People poke fun at that, and it's like, even I'm like, wow, dude, like that's kind of crazy to be this young and retire and whatever. But when you watch now what Tua is doing, it's like, well, maybe he had the right idea with what he was going through. So
who do you think ends up down there? Because they can't.
I don't know, man. They have to make a move.
Skylar Thompson, their backup quarterback, first of all.
Again,
when you have Tua, a guy that is fragile like that, why the fuck is Skylar Thompson your backup quarterback? Brother. Maybe we've just been blessed. Like I know Kenny Pickett is not
I have a serious question. How is he was the backup in 22 with those concussions, and he had to play a playoff game against the Bills. That's in 2022. It's 2024. How's he still got a backup job with the same team?
Yeah, like I agree, man.
He's capable, but I mean, Jesus, man.
Kenny Pickett is an option. He's an option.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, the Steelers obviously are intriguing. I just don't think it's going to be anything like that, man. I don't know what the price tag would be for one of those guys for Miami. I mean, I guess if you're trying to salvage your season and you still think you can compete and win, and get into the playoffs and stuff, you do make that move. But I think if Miami is to make a move and not roll with Skylar Thompson, and here's the thing, you got to remember, like if Tua is going to come back and he's going to play, he's probably going to be back in 2 weeks. Like,
right.
All the concussion protocol really is. So it's like,
it would be crazy.
There really isn't. There's no need for them to go get someone if his and their plan is that he's going to be playing football. But if the issue at hand is as serious as we think, then he won't be playing football in 2 or 3 weeks. But
yeah,
we'll see, man. I mean, he says Milton. I mean, if you're the Patriots, I know you just won a game. Is Jacoby Brissett available? And you start Drake May in a couple weeks. I don't know. So, yeah.
What's up, Ryan Tannehill? Did he retire? Is that what happened to him?
I don't know. I've seen a couple people throw out that name.
I've seen like negative responses to it as well, so I don't know what the deal
is he worse than Skylar Thompson? I don't know at this point if Tannehill.
I think he is, but he could be maybe. Like he did
at this
flounder
point, bro.
out
I mean, maybe I'm drawing a blank and not having a great memory. When is the last time we watched Ryan Tannehill throw a football?
Was he on Tennessee last year?
Was he?
I think he lost his job. Like they drafted Malik Willis, right?
And Will.
And that was
Levy's
before
last
Will
year.
Levy's. I don't know what the fuck.
I don't know, bro.
Tennessee. Yeah, probably not.
Hey,
It's probably not the greatest option.
Tom could probably throw on some pads and be better at that still than he is in the booth.
Yeah, that is fair. That is fair.
Sorry, Tom.
I just wanted to go back to my man Gint's comment here. Yeah, we show love to the Gunners here on Phaithful Phanatic. Got a big matchup, North London Derby on Sunday morning. So that'll be fun.
I mean this with all due respect. I have no idea. I know you're talking about soccer. You said North London Derby. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
It's basically like, to put it in NFL, it's like the Eagles and Cowboys, but it's Arsenal and Tottenham. Right. Yeah, it's that type of rivalry. Right. But should be fun. Fun weekend nonetheless. Will Levy's lost a football game with the Bears not having an off.
Sure did. Sure fucking did. It 1000% happened.
Let's talk this Monday Night Football.
Yeah. Again, we're not going to
get out of here.
We're not going to get into the ins and outs of it, give any predictions. We have 2 shows to do on Monday about this game. But just talking about a little bit about it. Obviously, injuries coming back. Are they going to play this week? And just some interesting comments from those 2 guys that I want to get into, Scotty. Devin White obviously is practicing this week, whether it's limited or not, but he and Vic Fangio had some conversations with the media this week, and Vic said, healthy or not, Nakobe's the starter. And then Devin was asked at his locker kind of, what his role is, and he basically said, well, you got to ask coach. So kind of odd. I don't know what to make of this Devin White situation. I did not hear that Devin White was looking half as bad as it seems all of a sudden that he looked throughout training camp and preseason. Yeah. But apparently it was so bad. I don't know. I didn't see any reports about that at all. And then the Isaiah Rodgers thing, he broke his hand on the last day of camp and had surgery. Nobody knew about this up until he just said it. So very, very odd. I know Nick likes to keep things close to the vest.
So how long is he out? Have they said how long Rodgers is out?
No, he's trying to play this week. He said he's feeling good. Maybe it's not this week, it's next week. Whatever it is, it wasn't all that serious, I guess. But I mean, what, dude? We thought he was starting week 1, and then he had surgery before we ever found out he was on the injury report. So that's kind of crazy. I'm hoping to get at least one of them back, if not both of them back. I think Devin White will have a role on this team. If he's not going to start right now with Nakobe Dean and obviously Zach Bond playing the way he did last Friday. But there is definitely a role for Devin White to see the football field. And like you mentioned the other day to me, we couldn't get pressure on Jordan Love the other night for the most part. And when you watch a team like the Falcons who got pressured against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense last Sunday and struggled with it, how can we create some of that? Is Devin White a great coverage linebacker? No, he's not. Can Devin White get after the quarterback at the linebacker position? Yeah, he can. So I think there's packages you can use for him in that way. But I'm more interested in the Isaiah Rodgers part because I think Quinyon Mitchell was so good last Friday. And I think he's just such a gamer and such a dog that he can play inside and out. It doesn't matter. I don't think you're going to mess with him at all if you move him inside for Rodgers, whatever the case may be. Get Avonte Maddox off the field. Get more of that depth back at the secondary position and let Rodgers, Quinyon, and Slay go to work at the cornerback positions. Mix in Akili, Ringo. And then, if Maddox plays sparingly, I won't care all that much. But if I have to watch 29 continuously get beat up and down the football field, I'm going to lose my shit. So Isaiah Rodgers is the one I'm most looking forward to being back on the field, man. And, not even back on the field. We haven't even seen him in an Eagles uniform.
Yeah, no, I agree with that as well. Between those 2 guys, I definitely want to see Rodgers a little bit more. I think what I've come to the conclusion of with Devin White is that I maybe just had this guy a little overrated in my mind of what he is or what we brought in. Because I thought, at the end of the day, if they really had to, they would end up starting Nakobe and Devin White and as linebackers there. But I do get it. They're both not great in pass coverage, so that is kind of the detractor there with that idea. I do think when you look at Nakobe Dean versus Devin White, I think it's the upside that Nakobe Dean gives you. He's younger. Yeah. He does have great play recognition skills. We saw him be very impactful in the run game and short pass game. Neither of them are good in pass coverage, so I don't think that was like a determinant between the two. So I do think it's just the upside of Nakobe Dean, why he gets the nod there. But I do agree with you. I think you could work Devin White in as like a stand-up edge rusher. He already plays that as a blitzing linebacker in a sense anyways. I get from a blitzing linebacker perspective, it's more of a surprise. But why not give him a shot when Bryce Huff has given you nothing last week? When, instead of a guy like Jalix Hunt, who is unproven, hasn't shown really anything at the NFL, the professional level. I would like to see Devin White get some type of a nod, some type of chance with the defense. I don't think our linebackers are like that great that he just can't get rotated.
No, right. Like, I think we're living a little bit of a pipe dream if we expect Zach Bond to be as effective and as much of a monster week in,
leading
week
tackler in the NFL.
Maybe
right?
he's the surprise of the offseason, man. Maybe he is a Pro Bowler this year and he balls out for us, which would be
the thing is, man,
but
who's the linebacker I can't even remember their names, dude. Who was the linebacker we had last year that he did something similar against the Commanders?
Well, there was Zach Cunningham and there was
the other one.
Yeah.
Who lost his job basically by the end of the season. God, what's his name?
He had
his fucking face.
Had the safety in Tampa Bay too.
Morrow. Nicholas Morrow, right?
Yep, there it is.
Because I always got him confused with Anthony Morrow, the basketball player, but his name is Nicholas Morrow. And that motherfucker, he had like 3 sacks or something against the Commanders and like an interception or some shit. And like, we're coming away and we're like, man, maybe we found this gem.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not full on sold on the Zach Bond experience just yet. He's got to do it a little bit more for me
there, brother. And to Darius's point, I didn't even include Cooper in the conversation for depth at corner, and obviously that's going to be a guy that's going to continue to learn and get on the field as well. Because that injury in camp obviously did set him back, and Vic Fangio talked about that. How he is sitting behind, but we're trying to catch him up.
I did want to ask you with Devin White, based on his response at the locker, right? That interview. Yeah. Do you think that he could become an issue? Like, the only reason I say that is because I've had Tampa Bay fans on Twitter come in my mentions and be like, you guys don't know what you're getting into with this guy. If he's not getting the role
I don't know, man. Blah, blah, he didn't say anything wrong, but it was more of a tone.
Like confused.
I don't want to read too much into it, but it was a little bit of a tone and body language type of thing and kind of just a mopey look on his face.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just I don't know. But
like he just found out
weird, right? Because what did we hear about Devin White when he first got here? Him and Jalen and AJ have a group text with each other about what was it about? About getting better, and there's a word I'm looking for that I was gonna say responsibility. That's not what I'm thinking of.
Accountability.
There it is.
Yeah, coming from Tampa Bay. Yeah.
So I don't know. I do not know.
I don't get it either. But I do agree with you. I think Fangio, when he was talking about Cooper DeJean, I think he is excited to get him caught up and get him involved in the secondary. Agree, so that's exciting in itself.
But the kind of the last thing I want to touch on here, man, before we really get into things on Monday's show, to wrap up the last 5 minutes or so of this one. Jalen Hurts. Big game. Like, how important is this game for Jalen Hurts from just an outside perspective? Because maybe everything's all good in the locker room, and maybe, it was just week 1 and some rust and learning whatever the case may be, right? Because outside of that, he had a very good game. He's 20-34. He was top 5 in passing yards across the NFL, threw 2 passing touchdowns, got the win, picked up a big first down with his legs. Like, there was a lot of good. There were a lot of nice throws. There were some very ugly. You're playing at home in your home opener, prime time, all eyes on you, against a good Falcons defense coming to town.
Yeah.
Like, they lost the game to Pittsburgh. They gave up 6 field goals to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They didn't allow Pittsburgh to convert in the red zone. They didn't allow them to cross that goal line at any point. We know what A.J. Terrell brings. Jesse Bates. They added Justin Simmons. Jalen has to be careful. They added Matthew Judon up front that can create pressure. Jalen has to be careful with the football. How big of a bounce back spot is this for you? Just confidence-wise, not for the team, bro. For us, for us needing to see it, needing to see a big time or just a good performance from Jalen, a clean performance from Jalen that results in a win. How important is that for you? Because you talked about trends last show or earlier in the week with me. And let's say they win the game again. But let's say they win the game 27-24, 23. But Jalen turned the ball over 2 times again and made some head-scratching decisions with the ball and put his defense in a bad way once or twice.
Yeah.
To win again, but when's that going to stop? So how important is it for us, that he plays a clean game?
Yeah, it is. It's very important, man. And it's not even necessarily the clean game. It's just the way the turnovers happen. Like, self-inflicted in a sense, you know, the decision making, it just wasn't there in that Green Bay Packers game in those 2 moments, right? Those 2 moments, it's like he went brain dead in a sense, and that's just not something that we can have happen. That's how you lose games that you're supposed to win, right? And I think, you know, last year we fell into this, you know, I don't want to call it a trend. It wasn't a trend at the time until it happens, but we fell into this way of thinking that the Eagles are so good, they're so talented that they can still win even when we do make these brain dead mistakes, whether it's turnovers on offense, whether it's a dumb 3rd down penalty to give up a 1st down on defense, whatever the case may be. We thought we were so good we can overcome anything after we beat the Chiefs on the road and then come back home and beat the Bills in overtime. We can do anything, even though we turned the ball over 2 times or so. I just don't want to fall into that again, and I won't fall into that way of thinking. If he turns the ball over at an excessive rate again, we're going to have conversations about it, and I'm just hoping that that's not the case. I don't want him to be this, like, gunslinging turnover machine, right? Like, I don't want that.
I think he can be.
I don't want him to be a game manager either. I understand the risks because, you know, that was the thing watching, you know, Dallas versus Cleveland the other day and thinking about Jalen and some of his decisions, watching some of the decisions Dak makes, and then just taking that thought and going around the league with it and watching other quarterbacks. And you do have to take some of the turnovers with the risks. Like, if that ball gets to AJ in the end zone, it's an incredible play. You know, maybe he doesn't slip. He comes up and makes that catch. Like we saw Baker Mayfield talking about Mike Evans. Just throw it up for him. He's going to get it, right? Like, maybe if AJ doesn't slip in the end zone, he goes up and grabs that. Maybe we get a touchdown out of that. And I think that's the idea, right? Like, when we get to 3rd and long in your own territory, we get so frustrated when our team will just run the ball and give the ball right back to the other team in that situation. Yeah. But we also get frustrated when Jalen throws it on 3rd and long in his own territory into triple coverage to Smitty. So it's like a give or take. I don't want him to stop taking risks because we won't get those big, exciting plays.
It's the same thing as Josh Allen for me. Like when I talked with you about
it's exactly.
It's the moment.
It's Josh Allen.
The timing. It's the timing.
Yeah.
Like, if the Eagles were up 14 or whatever at this point, and it's the 4th quarter and there's 5 minutes left, and he makes that decision to try to bury them, whatever. You're still up 2 scores, whatever. But when it's a 5-point game, or maybe it would to whatever it was at that point in time, you're in field goal range. It's 3rd. You can't make that decision.
Yeah.
That Smitty play. That Smitty play, for instance. The first interception. If you're at your own 30-yard line and you chuck it 35 yards downfield and it's picked on 3rd and long, it's like a punt. It doesn't matter. When you're throwing it from your own goal line and putting your defense back on their heels to start the possession, that's the moment. That's the situation that it can't happen in.
Yeah.
So he's got to be better, man. I think he will. I have all the faith in the world still in Jalen Hurts. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm nervous for Monday night. It's just a little bit because I need to see the positive. I need to see the game with the big plays and explosions that they can bring with this offense.
It's not even that I'm nervous, man. It's more that, like, I'm not nervous because I know we can win even if Jalen does throw 2 interceptions. Like, we can still beat the Falcons at home even if Jalen does turn the ball over 2 times in this game.
But like, when's that going to stop?
When's
that going to It's
just building that trend. Like, the more interceptions you throw, the more comfortable you're going to get with throwing interceptions. And that's not what I want to happen. I want to see us go a little bit in reverse here. That's my point here. But I think to Darius's comment, I know they have different personalities, Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, but I do think they kind of play a little similar in a sense. Like, especially last season, they played very similar. I mean, you had Josh Allen with 18 picks. You had Jalen Hurts with 15. You had Jalen Hurts with 23 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen with 29, 15 rushing touchdowns each. I mean, they're very similar in like the physical manner that they run, like all of it. And I think they're similar in the sense of hero ball. I think that's a similar.
Jalen needs to learn. Jalen needs to look around the room and see all of that fucking talent and see that new coordinator that's going to put him and his skill position guys in positions to win one-on-one battles. And he needs to just trust it. There's no need for hero ball, because guess what hero ball is, Scotty? That perfect throw to A.J. Brown that created a 67-yard touchdown 2 plays in the second half, that's fucking hero ball to me. That throw on a wheel route to Saquon Barkley is a perfect throw. That's hero ball to me. Hero ball doesn't need to be on the scramble, 3rd and 11, keeping a play alive and chucking one up across your body. That's not hero ball.
But I think it's even simplified down even further to just give Saquon the ball and options. We talked about that the other day, him pulling the ball and those read options and going nowhere with it. The Packers were ready for him to take off, and it was obvious that the Packers' game plan was to contain Jalen Hurts.
Was that him the ball off to Saquon? He's hot. I need to make a play. Like, I need to do, like, there should be none of that. Exactly. Yeah. You're 1,000%.
You have all these playmakers on your squad. Like,
it's one thing if you're not getting any push up front and Saquon's not running successfully on this drive, whatever it is, and you think you can create something, whatever. But when Saquon's running it down their literal fucking throats.
Yeah. And I mean, on the play with Smitty, right? When you're in your own territory, you throw it into triple coverage. If there's 3 to 4 guys on Smitty, that means somebody else is wide the fuck open.
Yeah.
And so that's the things I want to see as well as including Jahan Dotson. Including Dallas Goedert. Like, I want to see them
Dallas
Goedert
at your disposal as well. You have Stoutland University in front of you as well. Trust it. Trust the work. I know this has to be a Jalen Hurts cliche. Trust the work you guys have put in. Trust the system. Trust the play. Trust it. Trust your guys around you. So, with that said, I do.
It was the first game of the season. It was the first game of the season, and it could just be that. It could be rust. Yep. That's what it can be if it doesn't happen this week.
A learning moment. But your boy's got to hop off because he's got to run around the corner and get a haircut in 8 minutes or 10 minutes. So we got to wrap this one up, guys. If you are watching right now, not on YouTube, if you're watching on Twitter, if you're going to be watching in replay form, do yourself a favor. Help us out. Help us get to our first 200 subs on the newer channel. Check out the YouTube channel specifically. Smash that subscribe button. Share it with your friends, family, whoever's in the Philly sports. If they want to join the conversation, it is the best and only spot to get your comments on the screen here with us and let us know what you guys are thinking. Martian, Gint, D-Rab, Hunter, everybody, Abe, TR that was in the comments today. We appreciate you. Come back Sunday. Will be a pre-recorded version of Turf Talk. Scotty's got a busy weekend, a wedding to get to this weekend. It might not be in the greatest of shape on Sunday morning. So we will be back live Monday morning right here on the Phaithful Phanatics Show. And we'll also be live on DSM pregame live that night, breaking down and giving our predictions of this matchup. For myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your weekend.
Go